welcome to the EndurHunt podcast. Join me as I share my experiences as an emergent hunter, offer advice on how to overcome challenges, and pursue your passion for hunting. I am your host, Andrew. This is episode 8. Back to the beginning. I have with me a very special guest, Piotr Krupinski. Y'all have heard me talk about him in almost every episode of the podcast, probably. He is the reason that I got started hunting. He invited me onto that hunt in Montana back in 2018. And that is one of the things that we're going to be talking about today. And so we're going to start. Peter, welcome. Thank you for joining me. I know you and I don't get
Hey,
to
what's
talk as
up?
much as we would like to. Life is
Yep,
busy for
thanks for
both of
having me.
us. Yeah, man. I appreciate the support too. I know you've supported me and wanted to do this for a lot longer than I actually did it. So um, let's just get started with kind of talking about your background in hunting, how you got started, and we'll take it from there, man.
All right, cool, man. Yeah, I guess for me, it's a little bit different than the way you came up hunting. I came from a family that came over to the U.S. when I was a kid, so we didn't have much of a hunting background back where I grew up in Poland. Like we were obviously fairly rural, but hunting was really not something everyone was able to do like we get to do here in the States. So when we came over here, kind of grew up in New York City, which was not exactly the best place to, get a start in hunting. But, eventually somehow my dad, through some friends he met, ended up in the woods. So as a teenager, I slowly started to get out some. Not very successful at all. And I mean, we just put very few days on the ground in the field. Didn't really have a concept of public land and how any of that works. Didn't really figure that out till later down the line on my own. But yeah, I mean, just kind of started joining him on his outings and really fell in love with it. We always been into the outdoor thing, whether it be a lot of fishing and, foraging and other things. So I think it just kind of naturally progressed to that. And once I got in the woods and, we saw a little bit of success and just, started exploring the hunting space a little bit, I just fell in love with it. And, as I got older, I just stuck with it and sucked at it a lot, still do. But just yeah, I guess that's kind of the progression of how we got where we are today.
Man, it's funny, now that we're having this conversation and it's like a pointed conversation, I realize that I don't think you and I have ever actually talked about how you got into hunting. I think it's just something that I took for granted all of these years. Because like even when I was in the military, I'm like, I don't remember us talking about it, but I know you always hunted. So it's just like, and the foraging and fishing is huge. Talk more about the foraging stuff because that's something that's cool that you can do that I can't do being a colorblind son of a bitch. I would die with some of the stuff that you do probably.
Yeah, I mean that's something that I've always done, like since being a kid. Like I said, I moved here when I was fairly young. I was about 10 when I moved to the States, but even growing up like back in Poland, I remember as a kid, totally normal, just like a little kid, go off mushroom picking on your own and stuff. And I've always liked doing that. It was just like something to get me out of the house and do stuff. So it's weird. Once I relocated from New York or to where I live now in Northeast Pennsylvania, it's just kind of been a thing between me, my girlfriend, and we even get our get our kid out with us, try to do the best we can with that. But I enjoy it, and I think it's a lot of fun to go and look for wild food in any kind of shape or form. So we try to do as much of that as we can. It's a lot of fun. I mean, just basically, sheep things. We're collecting mushrooms. I'm also scouting and doing a bunch of other stuff that kind of in the background, so that works
Yeah.
out. But it's a lot of fun, and yeah, you probably wouldn't die, but some of them are pretty easy to find. But we'll get you on there. We'll get you working on it.
Yeah, Texas is a different beast too. Like I don't know how many people actually can forage here, right? Because the you have the nice deciduous forests up there in the Northeast in Pennsylvania. And, in New Jersey, I think, because I know Dre has done so for those listening to the podcast, eventually I'll have him on. Dre is our friend Andrew, being that we're both Andrew. He's Dre. I get called Luco. Dre does foraging too, and he finds the chicken of the woods the same way that you like. I have never seen anything like that here in Texas, and I'm sure I'm just not looking in the right places. But public land ain't exactly super everywhere here. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky enough to the area where I live, fairly close. I can leave my house and probably within, like a 10 minute drive. I could probably hit a few thousand acres at least of public. So it's great. It gives you definitely plenty of room to mess around as far as that stuff goes. It gets a little crowded come hunting season, but we try to make it work best we can.
Yeah. You do a good job. You and Nil do a great job of, you know, sourcing and preserving your food. Like it honestly, it's kind of inspirational to me because you guys know how to pickle and you do more of the self I don't even know what the word is, like self-sufficiency stuff than I do. Like you guys are so much better at it. But I feel like it's been part of your lives for so long. It's almost natural for you two to just do that stuff. It's so cool though. Like seeing you forage, being able to pickle everything. And you guys, especially now, it's trout season for you. So y'all are doing a great job of getting smoked trout. I know you killed it on the opener day. And then fortunately for me though, I have more hunting success than you. So I got that going for me.
Yeah,
But you're better at everything else.
yeah. Sadly enough, I think that just comes down to time. I feel like you get a lot more time in the field than I do. And you're a lot better at meeting people than I am. I just like for some reason I've had no luck making friendships with people that have like good access to where it's yeah. So and I for me my the hardest part for me is really just finding the time. A
Yeah.
lot of time, like the last couple of years, it seems that our trips out west have really been the brunt of my seasons. It's just I've been, at a new job and stuff, and my hours are kind of crazy, and it's just really hard to find time to go out in the field with some of the other responsibilities we have or with our son. It just really limits us on time, but try to do kind of as much as I can within reason before I start getting in trouble at home. So,
Yeah. I
yeah,
get
yeah,
that.
you're a bit more successful than I am.
I mean, I've
But
definitely
like I
I've had a
said,
lot of
we'll
reps
get
and
better.
time too. And you're right, man. Like I've had the fortune of being able to meet some people here and go hunting with them. Um, and I got really lucky and drew that Arizona tag, which was not expected or planned for. So there's a little bit of luck too. But yeah, I mean, dude, it's the same thing for me though. I haven't hunted public land deer since 2021, I think. So it's 2 years since I did it. And last year I didn't even try. I mean, with two elk hunts, there was no way I was going to pull it off. There was not a chance, especially not without annoying my wife. Got to find that balance. All right, so we've veered off the topic quite a bit. So I think now is
Yeah.
a good time to transition to the actual subject, which is Montana. So that's a fun story. So I'm going to give a little bit of my background, and then I want you to take it away because I know that it was like a gift, but I don't know all of the details about how it came up and all of that. So for everyone's awareness that's listening, I was in the military. I was still in the Marines, and I was actually deployed overseas when this guy messages me about going on a hunt in Montana the next year. And I had like a couple of weeks basically to figure out how to get a hunter's education certificate and then submit it to this outfitter so that I could actually draw a tag and go on this hunt. So for me, it was just this super weird, like very rushed, spur of the moment kind of thing. But I suspect that it was a little bit more planned on your end as far as like getting set up for it. So what actually happened for that to come to fruition? Like, how did that come together? And then I actually am curious why you asked me to join because I feel like you probably would have known other people who could have done it too, but maybe not.
All right, so it's kind of weird. I guess around the holidays that year, I don't remember when the Montana draw was that year. I think it's always that April, maybe late March, early April time frame. But like I said, I really had no idea how any of that worked. So it was weird. I guess I've been talking about going out west for a minute. So my girlfriend, no, she kind of surprised me right around the holidays. Like I was working pretty hard at that time. I was working in New York City in the construction business and just kind of staying busy all the time. So I guess she kind of saw my desire to go out there and hunt. So she didn't really have an idea of how any of it worked either. So she must have found an outfitter online, and she knew that I wasn't real big about guided stuff, but maybe more because of my references to a lot of the high fence stuff we have here or in other places we see. And it's just like not really my thing. Yeah, she's brought it up before. So yeah, she basically got me a what was it, like a 5 night stay at a ranch that was ran by an outfitter, but you could also do one of those deals where you crash at the place, but you're hunting on your own. So which is kind of the way we went. And then when I really started thinking about it, like, wow, like this place is in, that GYE, right? You got grizzlies, you got all this stuff going on. And I'm like, man, like this kind of intimidating for one guy that's never been out west to go on his own and really try to figure it out. And when I really started to look at everyone I knew, anyone that hunted, um, like there was just nobody I felt comfortable asking to really kind of, well, for one, in a way, almost have my back because I really didn't know what to expect. But also, I didn't think anybody that I knew that would even be remotely interested in going was anywhere near ready for that kind of physical, that kind of physical task, which is very dumb because I was nowhere near ready either.
Same,
But
apparently.
yeah, and you just came off a deployment a little bit before that, so you really have no excuse. But
Yeah, I know. Look,
yeah.
there's a reason why I work out as hard as I do now. Like that was a
Yeah.
humbling moment for me. Keep going.
Oh, oh yeah, dude. So that was kind of it. So when I started really looking into it, and I guess at that time we really started talking a lot more often when you were deployed. And then I just figured, you know what? Why not? Might as well ask Andrew see if he'd be interested. I knew you weren't really hunting much at that time or at all, really. But I know I've spoken to you about it, so I thought it was good. And when I asked you, you got pretty excited about it right off the bat. So I guess it just really, worked out well. I didn't really anticipate myself going back there. I just kind of figured I'd go out, try it, and maybe go back one day. I didn't realize it was such a thing, but it's just hard not to fall in love with it when you try it.
Yeah, man. Well, I had been flirting with the idea of hunting for a while, but it's one of those things where, like, and half the reason that I'm doing this podcast now, not this specific one, but the podcast in general, is like, it's freaking intimidating when you don't know anything about it and you don't have a mentor because we lived 2 hours apart or so. So it wasn't even like I could easily hunt with you on the weekends if I wanted to, unless I stayed at your place for a weekend and made a weekend trip out of it. But I was early in my relationship and going to get married shortly after that. So there was just like, there's a lot of tension there. But yeah, when you asked about it, I was like, I don't have a clue how I'm going to do this, but I've thought about hunting for a while. And there's no time like the present, I guess. And that was when I went down the rabbit hole of how the hell am I going to get a hunter's education while I'm in the middle of the desert overseas? And fortunately and ironically, Texas was the only state I could find that had a like an online only hunter's education pre-COVID that didn't have a field day. I'm like, cool, this works. I'm going to do this. So when I wasn't working, I was knocking out the online hunter's ed so I could do it. And then, yeah, I couldn't call. I remember it was being awkward because I had the email exchange with the outfitter and super helpful people, but I'm like, I can't actually call you guys. I don't have a cell phone signal. um, I could do online stuff, so I could email them. But I remember emailing them back and forth and sending them a copy of my hunter's ed and all that stuff. And I had a deadline, which I feel like that deadline was arbitrary because the draw was definitely way later. Like I don't think the draw happened until I was back in the States, but they wanted all of the paperwork beforehand, and that's why I had to have everything done before I left because I was home before Thanksgiving, and the draw wasn't until like March or April. I'm pretty sure they wanted everything online before that. But yeah, I remember
Yeah.
emailing them when I was deployed. And I don't remember the timelines either, but that was 5 years. Actually, technically, that was 6 years ago because all of this went down in 2017 and we hunted in 2018.
Yeah, I guess that
Uh,
really is 6 years ago. Oh,
yeah, the timing was way off. Um, so, all right. So we submit everything with them. We did the unguided hunt. We were going to stay at their place and then began the planning. So for me, to this day, I still feel like I kind of suck at hunt planning. I mean, I'm obviously way better than I was in 2018. And I mean, you and I have talked about this so much. If we were to do that exact hunt again, we would do it so differently. But I was so reliant on you for all of the preparation leading up to the hunt. So, how about we go through that a little bit? What you did to actually prepare, and how you figured out where we were going to try and hunt, and get some intel on the place we were going to go and how we were going to figure it out.
all right. So I guess at that time, I was really just I was starting to kind of work out a lot of the resources that are available. So obviously I did the thing kind of everybody does, scour the forums, scour stuff, because once we figured out kind of where we were going, it narrowed us down to a unit at least, which is great. And then, just by different kind of maps, which I think at the time, I don't think I was quite using Onyx, right?
Yeah,
There
we
was
definitely
almost like a,
weren't. It was, I
right.
remember, I have vivid memories of seeing that big ass map that you brought to Montana. You just threw it on the bed in the room we were staying in. We definitely did not use Onyx back then.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely used some online mapping software. I just like I couldn't tell you right now what it was, but luckily through the outfitter and stuff, I was able to get good maps that were already kind of set up for him, which was nice, and get to know the general area we were in, and realize that there was plenty of public kind of surrounding the place we were staying, fairly easy access. Which, like you said, thinking about that now would have been approached totally differently. But yeah, I think that was really just like looking at those maps, trying to figure out, by reading books and different things, like, okay, maybe check out these elevations, this time of year, the weather. We're kind of looking for specific terrain features. We're looking for specific spots, which I was totally wrong about. And yeah, I mean, other than that, man, it was weird. Like, it was basically a big shot in the dark. It's like, hey, we're just gonna go and try this out, man. Like you could only read so much and look at so many forums and podcasts and shows before you just gotta go and kind of try it out because it's so hard to transition all that information. It's so easy to talk about or listen to, but to really go and transition that information into the field, I find for me is really difficult until I kind of get put in that situation. So I think you had way more confidence in me at that point than you should have, but we did it anyways. So yeah, I think that there wasn't as much planning that went into that as there should have been. I think I was nowhere near prepared to even do the hunt planning like that. Just coming from back east and the way things go here, it's a lot different.
Yeah, I mean it's so much easier today too. Like part of that is we know better now, but the other part of it is the tools are so much better now. Go Hunt was it was technically a thing back then, but I don't think either of us had heard of it at that point. Neither of us were
No.
using Onyx. I think we just and I don't know if you could say I had too much confidence in you. I literally didn't know anything. I had to buy a rifle. Like I got home, I had to buy a rifle and use it. At that time, I only had my AR that I had just because, you're in the Marines, you know how to use an AR. I had never had a bolt gun before. So 2018, I bought my Savage 308. And not only did I buy it, I had to zero it and get comfortable shooting it. So I'm spending like 6 months just getting comfortable with a damn shotgun and buying gear. Like I looked like an absolute idiot on that hunt with my non-existent camo. I mean, I don't know if you remember looking at some of the pictures. I didn't have camo in like half of it. And this is like it was an early November hunt, I think. It was like the first week or two of November. And it was cold as hell. And we were both
Oh man.
underprepared for the weather. Like, holy shit. um,
Like I think the cold wouldn't be so bad, man. What killed us was that weird like, oh, it's minus whatever this morning and the winds are blowing 40. Uh
well, the high
that
was
sucked.
15 degrees like the entire time. Do you remember when we were driving through like Minnesota and it was -1 degree or something like that? And it was like 50-mile-an-hour winds. And we tried to go in that diner to get lunch. And it was just like an absolute nightmare. And we were worried my truck wasn't going to start again.
Dude, because your doors froze closed within like a half hour of us being out of this car.
Yeah,
Oh, it was
it
nuts. I
was.
talk about that all the time, man. It's nuts.
Yeah. Oh man. That was crazy. I totally forgot about that door freezing. I remember being worried it wasn't going to start. Oh, yeah, the planning process, like I think we could have probably done better. I know you got in touch with a couple of guys and I know you got some intel about like different drainages to check out. I remember talking about those. But I think you're right. We kind of went in blind and we're like we're just going to walk a lot and put miles under our boots and just try and figure it out. And we didn't say this earlier, but I've mentioned it in a couple of podcasts. This was an elk mule deer combo tag. We did the combination license, which um, we originally, I think, wanted to do elk because I remember you gave me that elk essentials book to read. And
Yep.
it quickly turned into a mule deer hunt, like very, very rapidly once we got to Montana. I don't even remember why. Was that your decision? I don't remember.
I don't, dude, honestly, I think what it was is which if going back to it now is kind of dumb because we consistently saw elk sign every day, but it seemed like they were just going back on it now a step ahead of us every day. We just kept going, getting there right when they were getting off these faces
Yeah.
when we were getting up high. Which I mean, honestly, if we had tried to work that plan differently, we definitely could have found some elk. Especially given that at that time, I don't know if it's still the same now, but I believe the tags we had were both either sex tags. So I think we could have shot a bull, a cow, or a buck and a doe,
Hmm. I don't
or a
remember them
doe
being either
rather.
sex tags. I think part of it was we didn't see elk and we did manage to see mule deer. I still don't know. Do you remember that very first day where we were going up that one ridge in the dark and we could see like eyes looking back at us? I don't remember. I don't think we ever found out whether those were mule deer or elk. But I think part of it was, when we didn't see any elk, even though we saw sign, we saw mule deer, and like you hunt whitetails, you understand how to hunt whitetails, and so you're like, well, it's a deer species, so it's close enough, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, this seems a little more familiar, except for the prance. But
Yeah.
yeah, mule deer are cool though, man. And I think honestly, a lot of it was just kind of we had a little bit more. We saw more deer activity and more deer sign. So especially within the first couple days, it seemed like yeah, we were seeing elk sign, but we were also seeing a lot of wolf sign. And it seemed like the elk were just out of the country by the time we were even up there, which is some days was an hour or two before daylight, and they were just gone already. But the deer kind of consistently hung out in the same areas, even though for the majority of the hunt we saw a lot of does and a few small bucks, with the exception, I believe, we saw that really nice 3x4, if I'm not
Hmm.
wrong, and I don't even know what day of the hunt it was, honestly, now. But I mean, that was just like a pump of adrenaline, except, which going back to that, even like neither one of us was prepared to take that shot across the canyon, but if either one of us had to do it now, that like, you know what I mean, that buck would have been
Oh,
dead.
I wouldn't have thought about it twice now. It
Oh,
was like a
dude.
three it was like a 300-yard shot. There was like perfectly across the canyon. He was wide open. But for me, my limit was 200 yards because I couldn't
Yep.
shoot much further than that with that rifle in New Jersey and even PA. Here now I could shoot out to 1,000 yards. I don't give a damn. Like I took that pronghorn at 420 yards for Christ's sake. um, and that's a smaller target than a mule deer. But do you remember the outfitter? Even though it was unguided, they still set their own like antler restrictions. It was a 3x3, right? We had
Correct.
to take at least a
Yeah,
3x3 because we had
yeah,
seen a
that was the
couple of
minimum.
smaller bucks. Because I think both of us were going into it like it's brown, it's down kind of deal. And I
Right.
remember the day we got there, we were greeted by, I don't remember the guy who owns the place. And he was like showing us to one of the trailheads that he said we should check out. And he told us when he was driving that truck, like, oh, yeah, we have our antler restriction. You have to take at least a 3x3, right?
Yep, that was it. And I think that was a bit. So I believe it was a 3x3 on mule deer, and then it
Hmm.
was basically any legal bull. So I guess in Montana it'll be anything branch antlered. But so they didn't really have a set thing for elk. But I remember us kind of even bringing up at that time, like, hey, if we see elk, like, I'm pretty certain for some reason that just tag was either sex. I was pretty much open, like, hey, if we see elk, like, I'm shooting a cow. It really doesn't matter to me. It was just about
Yeah.
trying to find that little bit of success, and they were kind of a little weird about it. Not, I wouldn't say they were against it, but they seemed a little apprehensive. I guess in their defense now, they were just probably like, "Yeah, these guys are idiots. I'm just hoping they don't die." So, but
Yeah.
honestly, they seemed like really reasonable people. Although I will say, the whole time we were there, I don't think we really saw much success in camp because there was plenty of guys there. Most of them were guided, but it just didn't seem like anybody was really doing particularly well.
No, I don't think so
So,
either. I remember the one guy got a bull. He was guided. and he was like
No.
way back there. I remember them saying they were like 12 miles back or something. And then I know one guy got a mule deer, but there were a lot of people in camp. I mean, there had to be at least 20 hunters at least.
Oh yeah, for
And
sure.
I think I only know of the two that had success. But I know there were a couple of guys that were holding out for something specific and they saw deer and they just weren't finding what they were looking for, so they chose to eat their tag. But I have to imagine there were other people that were there that weren't so choosy and they were just not having luck, kind of like us.
But I think like a lot of it is kind of the typical stuff you see, right? A lot of the people we saw when we hunted there, like really, it seemed like more of the locals were hitting the mountain, but the majority of the people that we saw in camp were really just with their guide rolling around and glassing off the roads, which is what we saw most of the time, which was kind of surprising to me. It's just not at all what I expected to see there. But like I said, I guess it's like a thing anywhere you go. It's a little bit, it's just a different culture around it. So,
Yeah.
but we still got our asses kicked.
Ooh, we did. Yeah, we did. I guess now we can, since we're talking about the hunt, we might as well transition to actually talking about the hunt. So, uh, already mentioned it was early November, cold. And the one thing we didn't talk about was there was a lot of snow. I think it snowed pretty much every day we were there. There was always fresh powder. And that definitely made it harder for both of us physically. Um, Not to mention, neither of us were ready for the elevation change. I mean,
No,
oh, dude, that was rough. That was the thing that killed me more than anything was constantly going up and down. I had never done it like that before. And I definitely kicked myself in the butt because I was just coming back from deployment. I had been home for a year, actually. It was basically a year on the dot because I got home mid November 2017, like actually probably late November 2017, right before Thanksgiving. And then a year later, we're in freaking Montana, and I should have been in shape, but definitely struggled a lot on that hunt. Um, what else do you remember about like the conditions and things? Is there anything else?
conditions. Like you said, we had. I don't think it was particularly. We didn't have like a lot of accumulation, but it was consistently snowing some every day for sure. What else? As far as conditions go, real cold and yeah, man. I don't know. I don't know what else we hunting pressure was pretty high. That's one thing I definitely do remember. We were
Yeah,
seeing camps like kind of it was weird because I didn't really make the connection then because it just seemed like such a large area and there was so much public land there. But it just seemed like there was camps along all the roads and I mean you saw first thing in the morning it was nothing but UTVs and ATVs that had going every trailhead. So I mean it was definitely a very pressured area, and that's why I also think going back to that hunt now would just approach it so different.
yeah. Well, I think like there's benefits to staying in the lodge, right? Because we did that unguided hunt and we stayed at the lodge, which I think was a good move for both of us because we didn't have this type of mountaineering esque experience. So going back now, I'd want to just camp out there and get away from people. But that was one of the things I noticed too. Every morning, you would see everyone get in their UTVs or their trucks and they would leave camp and go to the trailheads and you would constantly run into people at the beginning of the day and the end of the day. I felt like the pressure was spread out too, which actually didn't help because I don't remember seeing too many hunters in the middle of the day when we were like hiking around, but we definitely saw hunters in the mornings and the evenings and in the same area as us. And so I feel like we were just constantly, everyone was just constantly pushing the animals around. There was no way to put a pattern on them because they're always getting pressure from different places and just constantly getting moved, which was frustrating. But again, neither of us really knew what the hell we were doing back then either. At least not with Western hunting. I didn't know anything at all, but
No.
you at least had experience with Eastern hunting.
Yeah, definitely nothing. It doesn't even compare, as far as what we do here and then the Western game. So it was weird. Like I think what you're saying is true. A lot of the pressure was really centralized to, well, everything that was within a mile or two off the trailheads, really. And it seemed like in the morning, trying to get, leave the lodge and get up there, that's about as far as you got before it was starting to get light out. You tried to get set up. And I just think these animals were getting, they were pretty much basically nocturnal, or they were getting pushed way back in. I think if you really moved just another mile, there's a couple spots I can see in my head right now that we never went to, and I'm like, oh my God, dude, we should have been there. It was one of those deals.
Yeah.
But it definitely, and there wasn't like you're saying. You said the outfitter, like you saw everybody leave, but I think it was a lot of local hunting pressure. It seemed like the roads, those ranch roads back there that connected some of those local ranches, were just stuffed with people.
Hmm.
I mean, to be fair, like when we were leaving, driving around town, there was plenty of deer hanging on meat poles, which was great to see. But it just didn't seem like anybody was really pulling any studs out of there and was having a great amount of success as far as maybe the outfits that are in the area, which seem to be quite a few of them.
Yeah, no, there definitely were, and there was local pressure. You couldn't get on the road without seeing a truck or a camp or something like that. I mean, it was not happening. And I don't think either of us were in good enough shape to do more than 2 or 3 miles away from the trailhead because like we just couldn't do it. I mean, I was puffing air all the time, which didn't help.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, that definitely didn't help us. And that's honestly that was the primary reason that I go so hard now and I know you do the same thing leading up to the season. It's just hiking, 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 throwing a pack on your back with a lot of weight in it, trying to get the reps in, make sure your boots are good to go, all of your gear is tested and ready. And it's because both of us got our asses handed to us and we were humbled by the mountains in Montana. And I felt like me more than you. I felt like you were doing a significantly better job up there than I was. And that humbled me a lot because of my ego. I was like, I'm the Marine. This guy's just a construction worker. What the hell? Like, I should be better than him. Plus, we like to poke at each other anyway and try and get each other to do better.
Oh yeah.
But like, dude, oh, it was so humbling. It was so humbling. I'm trying to remember the day by day, and there are definitely some things I remember. So I think we were supposed to do 5 days, and we ended up doing
Yeah.
4, and we left. Oh no, I think we only did 3. Did we end up doing
No,
3 and we left on
no,
the
we
fourth?
did.
Or
I believe we left on what would have been on our last day because
Mhm.
basically one we got our asses handed to us nonstop.
Yeah.
Uh, it was. I mean, by the end of it, it was just kind of the mental game. I think it was discouraging, and I know for me personally, I at that time, and I still do sometimes now. When I do these trips, I tend to have a hard time staying away from home for a while. Not that I don't like being away from home, but like we have a kid that requires a bit of extra help, and I just feel like when I'm out there having fun for a few days, I get to feeling quite guilty about being away. So it's something I struggle with personally about staying focused after multiple days. I think that was really my first trip away from being home with the kid, and being away from my girl, and it was just kind of hard to make that. And then we started looking at the weather, and we're like, oh, well, this place is about to get hit with an assload of snow the next day, and we
Hmm.
just like, dude, like I don't know if we're gonna be able to, because driving down there was real sketchy. I mean, geez, like now I probably wouldn't be so freaked out, but like all these, it was just like it was pretty wild. The weather was kind of nuts just driving in, and we kind of decided to just call it early. And yeah, I mean, I don't think it was a necessarily a bad choice at that moment. I think maybe like you said, it was a humbling experience. We needed to just back out of there and really regroup. So I know partially it was definitely like just personal stuff and trying to work that mental game and keep staying motivated. And the other part was we got freaked out by the weather coming.
Oh, absolutely. And it was 100% the right decision. There were 3 major storms, like snowstorms that were coming. And I remember this because we missed all of them. We left at the perfect time. We missed Montana getting hammered with like 2 feet of snow because I think that's what it was in the forecast. It was supposed to be 2 feet of snow. Then we missed the big snowstorm in Chicago, and we missed the big snowstorm on the East Coast. And I remember that specifically because my wife got stuck at work. It took her like 4 hours to get home from her job. And normally it's an hour commute. So it's not like normally she drives 30 minutes. It was an hour commute. And I remember her getting stuck for 4 hours trying to get home in that snowstorm. Meanwhile, you and I had easy drive the whole way back to Pennsylvania. And then I left by myself. So yeah, it was 100% the right move. And dude, I still struggle with the guilt thing too, especially last year. It was so hard for me going on two hunts. So the listeners of this podcast don't know this, but it helps when you hunt as a child or a teenager and then you meet your partner and it's part of your life. Well, I didn't hunt at all. I didn't do any of this. I was in the military, so my wife was used to me leaving a little bit like that, but it's very different. I have an amazing wife who's super supportive, and she encourages me to go hunting. She's the reason I'm going to be able to go on that axis hunt next month. But I still feel guilty doing it. It's hard when especially when you're out there grinding like that Arizona hunt, man. 5 days and not seeing a single elk. I was like, I should be home. I should be with my wife right now. I know she's miserable without me. This sucks. I don't even have a kid. So, I commend you for being able to still do it. And, I love doing those hunts with you because we live on opposite sides of the country basically at this point. So that week that we get together is pretty much it. But yeah, I agree. I feel that guilt too. And it's a mental grind. And we were humbled. I mean, I'm trying to remember the day by day stuff. And I want to go back and forth a little bit and see what we could actually remember from each day. I don't know how much we'll be able to recount because they all definitely blur together a little bit. I don't know what you think about trying to recount some of those specific details if you have anything.
Uh, Dude, yeah, I'm all for it. What I'm remembering right now, I know kind of we actually got there really, really late on the first day because it seemed like we pulled in there, given the drive was like some absurd number of hours,
It's like
30
32
some odd
hours or
hours.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. So we ended up getting there kind of late afternoon. It was starting to get dark. And when we pulled in, they were all surprised, like, oh, most of the guys are here early for an afternoon hunt, which we had really no idea about. And So we kind of got the rundown from them when we got there, and I remember going out. He was kind of showing us the guy that ran the place was like, "Hey, here's a trailhead. You come up here in the morning and just kind of start heading up this ridge, and kind of go from there." Which was nice of him. It was great to kind of give us a starting point because that would have been a cluster of a morning trying to get that figured out. Just orientation and all that without seeing it in the daytime. So that was nice. So we went back to the lodge, had dinner, went to bed, and first day of hunting, I think like I said, we got to that trailhead he showed us. We got up that ridge. Well, started hiking up, and right in the dark, I know we bumped into. I still think they were mule deer. Pretty sure they were mule deer, just from spending time out there now. But I know we bumped into those. Kind of, you they bumped off in the dark, but we just kept pushing. Got up to the I think top portion of this ridge where we felt like we could glass across to the other side pretty good, and thought we were gonna have a great vantage. And yeah, I think that was really how we did that morning. We got up there, glassed for a while, saw a lot of people and not a lot else. So I think we stayed up there for a while. Probably got cold, if I could remember. And I don't know. I think we just started for us. Day one was really just hiking and exploring. It was just moving around. Once we knew that that morning hunt was over, instead of sitting and glassing in a better spot, we kind of just wandered around trying to see if we could pick up sign, if we're seeing any animals within the timber, and found nothing but a lot of wolf tracks and lion tracks, if I remember correctly.
I think day one was the day where we had that mountain lion circling our tracks, right?
No, I don't think so because I think that was in a different area. So then later on, for a couple days straight, we went up to this other ridge where we had seen a bunch of mule deer kind of on the top of this ridge. As it sloped down, it was a bit like a finger of timber, and it seemed to be holding a lot of deer. So I don't know. And then on the backside, we were finding a lot of elk sign that was seemed recent. So I know we were heading up there for 2 days, and I know when we got up to the top, I believe the second or third day, we sat for a while, glassed, and when we decided to go back on over to the other side, where we noticed about 20 yards behind us, in our boot prints in the snow was fresh lion tracks. So he must have just been up there, kind of watching us for a little while.
Yeah, that's one of those details that you. Well, actually, we didn't have cell phone service at all. We only had
No,
we had the Wi-Fi at the lodge, so we had that to
right.
because I know we both wanted to communicate back with our girls. But that's a detail that you share until after you get home. You don't share until after you get home.
Oh, for sure, for
Yeah,
sure.
I feel like most days were like that. I think it was day two where we bumped those mule deer at the very end of the day when we were like creeping our way back down to the truck. And I think it was day three when we glassed up that, but we had that one glassing spot and we were glassing across the drainage trying to see what we could find moving from the other side. And that was when that buck bedded down. And then we were both like going back and forth, like, should we do it? We both have the BDC. Technically, it should be okay, but we've never taken a shot that far with these guns. And then
Right.
we decided not to do it.
So it was weird because I believe, if I remember correctly, the buck that bedded across from us was like a little forky. He was a little two by two, and he was just
I
there
thought he
for
was a
it
two by
felt like
three.
hours, maybe a two by three. But I know technically we couldn't shoot it because that's not what the outfit wanted. But we were just like so tempted because at one point we could get under 200 yards on him. Both of us could have made that shot, and he was just bedded. He just didn't care. And I mean, if it wasn't for the restrictions we had at the time, he would have been dead.
Hold
But
on. I think we definitely talked about like, we could shoot it anyway and then just load it up in the truck and just not tell anybody because
oh, dude, for sure.
I know we talked about just throwing it into the cooler and leaving it under my tonneau cover. Like, they ain't gonna know, and it's so cold that the damn thing is gonna freeze solid anyway.
Yeah.
Uh,
Thinking
yeah,
about it now, it probably wouldn't have been a bad idea.
yeah. One of us would have a mule deer in our house somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere. At
Oh,
least some meat in the freezer that year. And I
yeah.
think that day he was bedded across from us, which is I think the third day was the same day we spotted that buck kind of working his way up the drainage because we were kind of at the almost I want to say we were close to the very back end of the drainage where it all went up, and we were kind of set up in there glassing down and across, and that's where we spotted. Well, it was that 3x4, which to me, I don't, dude, I couldn't tell you now, but he seemed like a really big deer, and he was working his way up, just dogging the dough up this drainage. And I know we saw him through the timber, and we definitely had him within 300 yards, but wasn't he was stopping and going, and eventually I know he went over that backside, over that ridge across, and we just decided to haul ass behind him, and that was dumb. 'Cause we never relocated him or anything else, but I mean, it was definitely exciting. It gets your blood pumping and get to see some new things. Get to see that other side that we probably should have seen anyways. But
Yeah,
like
well,
that was really the highlight of that hunt is I think seeing that buck there because it was the rut, and I mean they were definitely rutting, but maybe that was the reason. I know we saw like that's the one thing that kind of surprised me because we saw areas with so many does in it, and it just seemed like there was no bucks. Like maybe the timing was just a little bit off, and we had been there maybe a week or two later, we would have seen more bucks, but at the same time that pressure was just so high.
yeah, that's the tough part. But I mean, you're right. We might have been a little early for the rut, and they were just doing the pre-rut stuff. But also back then, for me, the Forkies looked like they were big deer because I hadn't seen any before. So
Yeah.
it's tough to say. Uh, Everything to me was amazing about the experience. I mean, just seeing any of the mule deer at all, seeing how different they were, watching them hop away. I mean, it's just so to this day,
Oh,
it's
they're so
still
weird.
amusing watching them prance away. You know.
Oh, they're so weird, dude. Everything about those things is weird.
Yeah, it's true. They are weird. Oh, anything else notable that you can think of for the hunt itself that we didn't like hit on during the actual days? I mean, I feel like we kind of covered all of the interesting details. We weren't
One
successful.
of the days.
Go
Oh
ahead.
wait, I just want to mention that one of the days we had decided we drove down and hit a different access point. So it was a different trailhead, And I remember kind of going off in a different direction, and we bumped into a bunch of moose sign. You remember that?
Nope.
We got into a bunch of moose sign. Yeah, we got into a bunch of moose sign, and then we had the wolves started howling all around us.
Yeah, okay. I remember the wolves part. We went to a completely different area. We drove I think it was a few miles away, and we hiked in. It was a like a couple of hours. We went in
Yeah.
and we had wolves on all three sides of us. I remember because we went up the trailhead, we got to a peak and we were trying to glass. There was wolves on three sides of us. The only way they weren't was the trail that we had just taken. And we hightailed it out of there pretty quickly, if I remember.
Yeah. Yeah, we did. And also, I think we hit a boundary. I'm pretty sure there was a boundary we kind of miscalculated and ended up on a private public boundary and basically got corner locked and had to get out of there.
Yeah, I remember us questioning whether or not we were on private land. And
Right.
we were like, you know, between the wolves and us not being sure whether or not we're even allowed to be where we are, we should probably just turn around.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So we were not successful, technically speaking, in the terms of we did not harvest or kill any animals. But I mean, I've
Nope.
said it a million times on this podcast that, and it's only been 8 episodes now, but I've said it on almost all of them that that hunt is the one that triggered all of it for me. Like that was the one where I was like, yeah, I'm absolutely going to be a hunter now. And we've made efforts to go out west every year since. It's had a profound impact on me. What was that impact for you?
So I think it's kind of the same thing for me. I believe before that I was kind of a casual hunter. Something you see that's I think it's very common here in the East. It's kind of the guys that might go out a couple times in bow season, might go out a little bit in rifle season, but I wasn't really putting any particular effort or thought into it. It was more like, here's some public land, state game land, and let me just go wander around. Maybe I'll bump into one. And I think after that trip, it just made me so much more serious, made me really get more, I don't know, more prepared. Definitely learn a lot more. I really started to dive deep and, start to understand that gear was a lot more important than I thought it was. I always thought it was kind of a lot of stuff was really gimmicky before that. So it definitely helped me understand better gear, the benefits of planning, being in better shape, and it just made me excited. And it also made me hate coming back home and trying to sit in the stand.
Dude, I hate tree stand hunting so much
Oh,
now.
that
It's
sucks.
Western hunting has absolutely ruined tree stands for me. Like I did tree stands the entire season after that, but I hate it. I mean, it's so different. It ruins it.
Yeah,
Like Western spot and stalk hunting is just totally different.
yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. And yeah, I just get a little bored now if I have to sit in the woods. And there's definitely different things here, and we can still have a lot of fun. And I still enjoy doing it here at home. But yeah, man, I really don't even sit tree stands anymore. I just try to do other things because I just get too bored, man.
Oh, dude, yeah, it's tough. It is definitely tough to sit in a tree stand, and especially because like you have to hope that the deer come to you and they come around, and you got to
Right.
really put that time in to scout and prepare. All right, knowing what you know now, what do you think you would have done differently planning, and how do you think we would have changed the approach?
Okay, right off the bat, I can tell you that would have had good mapping software. Would have spent plenty of time e-scouting because I believe that area in particular, if we had just gotten a little bit further back, I think that's a place that would have benefited from us being further back in, kind of a base camp setup, and definitely hunting. I know for a fact, looking at those maps later, there was a few drainages that kind of were on the backside of where we were within a couple miles, and I believe those drainages didn't get hit nearly as hard, and they probably held majority of the animals in the area. And I know there's, some national forests and stuff up there, and I think those would have been great areas to explore. I just think just approach wise, it would have been so different. Would have been way more prepared for the cold. That's for sure. Would have gotten way better at glassing because we sucked at it.
So
Didn't have any of
bad.
the right stuff. So definitely would have been more prepared for that and really just be more patient because I felt like on that trip you just we were trying to make something happen so bad that you kind of lose focus, right? You're trying to glass, every little thing you see gets you excited, and now you want to get up and go. And I think with those deer, we didn't let them bed. Or the ones we found, we kind of just busted them up, moved them around. So I think the approach, a strategy would have been totally different going in there now, just knowing what we know just a few years later and having a little bit or more time under our belt, you know what I mean? And a little more research and yeah, definitely a big one would have been no, I want to say maps. Maps are essential. Good mapping software. Whether you use GoHunt Maps or Onyx, either one of them works, but I'm sure there's some other options, but there's just those are two I've messed with, and just being able to e-scout, we've seen the benefits of that in other areas we've been in now, and it's definitely paid off, or at least gotten us closer to being successful. So that's a big one. I think that's something that nobody should overlook, and there's so many resources out there now that are almost free to you, basically, for learning how to e-scout. I think it's something that needs to get done. It's an absolute necessity if you're gonna go out west and try that kind of hunting, or even back here, back east. It's still a great tool.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing I would have added is more shooting. I feel like we could have done more
Oh,
shooting.
dude, yeah.
And now that you even know that there's ranges where you can shoot further where you are, like I think we could have been more prepared to take a longer shot. I definitely was not prepared for how far we would have to shoot. I don't think we ever got closer than like 150 yards or so from deer. And
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I think there was one day where maybe we busted a group of does and maybe we were like 50, 60 yards or something, but I don't think we could have shot mule deer does. Um,
No.
and yeah, I would definitely have tried to shoot more and put more time into resources in figuring out a range where I could actually practice slinging lead because I felt like that was a confidence thing for me too. But
Oh, for
everything else
sure.
you said was on point.
Cool.
Um,
Yeah, definitely.
well, the I think that pretty much wraps up Montana 2018. Anything that we didn't talk about that you thought we were supposed to, or we discussed in like our little outline thing?
No, I think we look bad enough already. I think we should stop there.
The last thing here, because we are both coming up on the amount of time that we have left to talk. We're both going back to Montana this year. We forego the elk mule deer combo in lieu of a mule deer combo, which I think is actually whitetail and mule deer combo. And that's
Right.
the difference between the deer combo and the elk deer combo. Um, so for me, I'm super pumped because well, I talked about this on the last podcast that'll come out 2 weeks before this one, but it's like a shot at redemption. I feel like I know we're not going to go to the same area, but I still feel like going back to Montana, chasing mule deer again. I'm really excited for it, and now I'm just excited because we actually have experience doing Western hunting. You know, we've both gone out on multiple trips at this point. We've been to Wyoming, Utah twice. I've been to Arizona. We've gone to Montana once, and I think we're in a much better place. It is the general tag, but I'm really excited. I know that we've already started looking at different units and doing research on Go Hunt and getting things ready. But how are you feeling about the this year's trip?
I feel really good about it. What's nice for me is I get to take my dad out with us this year. He went with us on our Wyoming trip for pronghorn. He had a great time, and so I try to get him out with us when I can. He does an archery hunt, so that's tough. But with this being a general rifle hunt, I think it's going to be more accessible. But it also presents a different set of challenges. It's trying to find a unit that's maybe got a little bit less elevation, might be a little less crazy for him. But I think it just adds another layer to that planning portion. I think it's going to be. We had a great hunt with him when we went to Wyoming a couple of years ago, so I'm looking forward just to having him out there and spending that time with you. And definitely a shot at redemption. I just definitely want to go there and be successful and kind of say, yeah, went to Montana, did that. You know what I mean? Didn't
Yeah,
lose twice.
man. Well, we have a few people going with us because Jerry's coming too, right?
Oh, I'm not sure. I don't know. Think he actually drew. I don't think he ever put in. It's like a whole
Oh,
thing, but
okay. Well, we'll
But
have
I don't
three
know. He
tag
might still
holders.
join us. Yeah, we'll have 3 tags in camp for sure, and then we don't know. We might have a couple guys that come out with us just to hunt. I mean, just to hang out, which is nice. It's always nice to have those extra people in camp, and we really like we had Jerry with us last year, and just getting him that experience of joining us in Utah, I think was great, and it was eye opening for him. And he's definitely been a lot more excited about the hunting now, and I think it's a great way to get people into it. Just taking them out there and showing them that, I think it really shows them the possibilities of what you can do.
Oh yeah, big time. He was huge last year because we both had issues. Like you got hurt and your bow got screwed up, and it
Mm,
was hard hiking. I mean, we did like at least 10-ish miles every day, and we didn't take
yeah.
breaks. And he was positive. That's always the concern when we bring new people in with us because we both know how hard it is. Like you've got to have the right people in your camp, otherwise they're going to make it more difficult. You're going to end up having a person who's negative and trying to leave early and stuff, and he was all about it, trying to help us make sure that we had things that we needed. And it was good because we both needed that support too. Like it's nice to have someone who's going to stay positive and keep things going. And I really liked having Jerry out there. It adds a new set of challenges though, because we're going to have potentially 4 people in camp, and it that adds its own things because you've got to deal with the extra sense, the extra sound, and it certainly changes things. But I think we're going to be in a really good spot. And for me, I'm in the fortunate position because of my elk success last year. My freezer is super full, and I'm about to go on the axis hunt. So if that's successful, I'm going to have a really full freezer. So for me, I really want a mule deer, and I know that we've been looking at units that have mule deer and whitetail. And yeah, for me, I think I'll probably be in a position where I'm going to let y'all go first and try and find something because I really want a mule deer and I'm not as interested in taking a whitetail as I would be taking a mule deer. And so that's one of the things that's been a factor for me going into this is I don't want to take a whitetail. I think I want to just stick with a mule deer. Now I could be eating my words because in 6 months I might not have access meat in the freezer and my freezer might be half full. So things could change. But sitting where I am right
Yeah.
now in the middle of May, that's kind of where I'm at.
I think for me, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, for me, it really makes no difference. I'll shoot a whitetail or a mule deer, but I think most of the areas we're looking for are kind of mixed up. They tend to carry both. The one thing I'm concerned about is I know everybody this year has been talking about the bad winter kill in parts of the West, and some of the areas we're looking at have the potential to have been affected or they've already been on the downturn. I know mule deer haven't been doing good for a while. So, but for me, the big thing is going to be my dad. I want him to kind of get on the gun first because he's always like mule deer. He thinks they're super cool and he's always wanted one. So I think that's kind of going to be the first couple days at least is trying to get him on one. And after that, it's like, screw you, dad, you're on own. We'll
Yeah.
make it work, but I definitely want to get him on a mule deer. I think that'll be a lot of fun, and I like seeing him successful. It was great seeing him with his pronghorn in Wyoming, and it's just I think it's great memories for all of us to make. So just looking forward to doing it.
Yeah. I loved hunting with your dad in Wyoming. We're gonna have to do another one of these and recount the we honestly I feel like we should just do one for each of the Western hunts we've done so far because each one has been such a unique experience. Like that
Oh,
first
sure.
Utah any bull hunt or any legal weapon hunt was a unique one. It'd be cool if I could manage to figure out how to get 4 people on a podcast at the same time, because then I could get all of us on there.
Oh yeah.
That would be very unique. And then we had the Wyoming pronghorn hunt, which was unlike anything either of us have ever done before. I mean, that was awesome.
And probably will ever do again.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever get lucky enough to do that again, especially since we don't have access to that ranch anymore. And then last year's Utah hunt was honestly, it had highs and lows because I had opportunities that I blew, but the pressure was so hard. So I mean, I feel like we
oh,
have a
dude.
podcast episode in each of those, and we should just do something again and try and do some more of these. Uh, I don't know what you
Oh,
think, but
absolutely. I'd love to.
All right, Peter. Well, thank you for coming on and taking the time to share and recount the Montana hunt for me and talk about the one that we've got this year. I can't wait to have you back on. We'll talk about all the other hunts that we've done, and we'll have to do another one after this season and recount that as well. It'll be really exciting, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yep, thanks for having me. And yeah, definitely looking forward to going over some of the other stuff. It's always great to sit down and talk hunting with you, bud.
Yeah, you too, buddy. I would share your social media, but you don't have any, so there is no way for anyone to connect with you otherwise. So if you're
Yeah,
listening to
snail
this,
mail.
if you're listening to this, you can go ahead and follow me though. I have the EndurHunt Instagram, EndurHunt. This is also going to go on YouTube. We're on Apple Podcasts, so check us out on all of those locations. And let us know if you'd be interested in hearing more about the other hunts that we've done, or since I know some of you that have that listen participated in some of those hunts, let me know if you actually want to participate in a podcast about it because it'd be pretty sweet. All right, thanks everyone, appreciate it.